resistance. You have one candle closing below resistance, you have another candle closing below resistance, you have this candle closing below resistance, you have this candle that stopped you out right over here. Now you could have had a stop up over here, but this is going to be a very, very big stop loss. So another candle stopped you. So now this candle closed below resistance, which means it's not a buy. A buy is going to be when this candle closes above resistance, right? So you got stopped out. Now you're thinking, oh man, now what do I do? So now when you have gone through this webinar, when you truly understand what breaking the lows of the high means, then you can possibly enter a trade. So now basically what happens is that, let's say the next candle, right? The next candle, when it breaks the low of this candle, then there's a very high chance price will continue moving bearish. That's what's going to happen. But at the same time, you have to be mindful of the fact that now your stop is not going to be up over here. Your stop is going to be up over here, above this candle. So you're waiting for price to break this low and then continue moving down. Because here's what's going to happen. If you don't wait for price to break the low, what can eventually happen is that maybe the next candle, it can kind of like, form something like this, right? Because we have a bullish candle on the 30-minute time frame. So you have to wait. If the next candle creates an upper wick, I would enter when it breaks the low of the candle that stopped me out with stop loss. This makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense. But we're trying to explain here's something very, 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 very simple and ground to earth. So let's see what the next candle does. So the next candle, it basically breaks the low and continues moving down, right? So this is why you're waiting for price to break the low of the previous candle. Of course, you can enter when price is retracing, but you need confirmations. You need to be very, very safe when you're trying to take a trade. Because again, when you have a bullish candle forming, there's a very high chance that the next candle can create a wick down, respect the low right over here. It can respect the low and then continue going bullish. So that's why it's really important for you to wait for price to break the low once you get stopped out the first time. Because now you're giving your trade a second chance, So this move down, once it starts to break the low, right over here, this is you're giving your trade a second chance. That, okay, I got stopped out, now I'm going to give you a second chance. And another very important thing to notice, now, when we were talking about stop losses, this was a conservative stop loss, right? On your second entry. A more aggressive stop loss would be up over here. Make sense? I'll tell you how this would make sense as a more aggressive stop loss. The way it's going to make sense is now, if this candle is breaking the low of the previous candle, then there's a high chance it will continue down to make a new low, right? And once it's breaking the low, then there's a very high probability that the price will not come back up to break the low it created itself. Let's just let that sink in for a sec, right? Let's just sink in, because when price is breaking a low, let me just explain this again with another color. Statistically, if you use a blue color, people understand blue color more because I think it's a more friendly color, or I don't know what the fuck that means. But if this candle stopped you out right up over here, right? You're like, okay, perfect. I got stopped out. Now I'm going to wait for a second entry, right? So when this candle forms, it creates a high right over here. It creates a high right over here, and then it starts to break the low of the previous candle. When it starts to break the low of the previous candle, now you're anticipating price to continue moving bearish without coming back up to retest the high it created. So that's where you're going to have an aggressive stop, right? This is going to be an impulsive entry where your stop is going to be above the current candle that is breaking the low of the previous candle. This is really, really, really important. So you can watch this over and over again and try to just see how it works. So we're going to go over to the next example here in the next slide. Let's see what happens here. Oh yeah, see, it then starts to come up because there was support over here, and then it does its dance. All right, this one right over here, right? we have